So in our previous class we had looked at the concept of creating schemas, and we created a simple API where we were able to add a single post to our database, and we also explained the concept of adding the JSON parser, and we said that the JSON parser, it helps the Express server to be able to parse or convert the JSON data that is being provided in the body by the client, so that that data can be understood by the server. Without the JSON parser, then our server will throw an error with saying the body is undefined. Alright, so we look at that, and we said if you want to add a JSON parser, you simply add this line of code using express.json. This will automatically add the parser. You can also add this second line if you are sending some form data. We will look at what is form data later in the upcoming lessons, and then we will come back to this line of code. So today I want us to look at CRUD operations and how we can perform each of these CRUD operations. And we said CRUD is a short form for saying or an acronym for create, read, update and delete. So whenever you are creating an API, your APIs will always do one of these operations. It's either the API is creating something, or the API is responsible for reading some data from the database, or the API is updating or deleting some data. So we can say we have four key CRUD operations that we can do. So the first one we're going to look at is the create, and the create operation, to create means we are adding some data to the database, and the standard HTTP method for this operation is post. So when you are creating, it is always good to use the standard HTTP method, which is the post, in your API, so that you can show that you are creating some data. So this below here is a code sample. So you can see we have an API app, then dot post, then slash accounts. So slash account becomes the path, the API path, and here you can see the code body where we are creating or we are saving a new data in the database. So let us try to create an API similar to this that will create a single object or a single post. So allow me to turn to my Visual Studio Code, and let me also open the MongoDB on the cloud. So I created with this account. Click on MongoDB Atlas, and let me sign in with Google. As it is loading, let me also open Postman, which is the tool we will use to test our API in the meantime as we build our React application. Postman. The computer is hanging. I don't know. It's right here. Somewhere you can mute. Alright, so let me open Postman in the meantime. Alright, so our database is open. Let me go to our table. Alright, so let's go back to our code and create a simple API that is going to create or to post some content. So when we go back to our API file, you can see that we have this API called add post, and the HTTP method we are using here is post. So this is an example of a create operation. Because we said create, when you're creating something, is basically you're adding something to the database and you're using the HTTP method post. So when you look at our code keenly, you'll see that we have this thing here. May allow access. It is blocking us. Right, so the firewall has gone away. So you can see that in this API we are creating a post method, and then the path is add post, and then within here we have the logic. So basically what we are doing is that we are logging the request that is coming from the client, and then we are getting the data from the request body, and we assign it to these two variables. Then now we are using this data to create an object called new post, and then now we are using create. So this is an example of a create operation. So we are adding some data and we are using the method post. So I think we have done this in our previous class, and now let's proceed to look at the next CRUD operation, which is the read operation. So the read operation means that we are fetching data from the database, and when we are fetching some data, it's always good or standard to use the HTTP method called get. Alright, and therefore get is means that we are reading some data from the server. So now that we have created a post, let us add another API down here that will fetch all the posts that we have created. So we can say router dot post, we're going to use this time get, and then we can now say slash get posts. Alright, then hyphen, we use asynchronous way of writing this method, and then we have the request and the response, then now we add the function body. So in this body, what we want to do is to fetch all the data that is stored in this particular table called posts. So when you go back to our server here, you can see we have this table called posts, and you see now we only have two documents or two rows of data. So we want to fetch this data so that we can be able to see it in our front end, which is the postman. So how do we fetch data? What query do we use? So here you can see when we are creating a data, we are using the MongoDB query called create. Now what query will we use here? So the code snippet here is to find. So the find is a query that will fetch all the data in that particular table or collection. So we're going to say declare a variable. Let's declare a variable called constant list. We call it list of posts. Alright, and then we assign it to, so we say posts dot. So when you use post dot, you can see that there are so many methods that you can use here. So there is a create method, there is find by ID, find one, and all that. So let's use the first one, find. So what this query will do, it will fetch all the records in this table called posts, and then after we've gotten that records, we return it. So we return a response with the status code 200 and with a JSON, and this JSON is going to have a message saying list of posts, and then it is also going to have another property called data, and in this property called data, this is where we're going to put list of posts. And so because my code is spanning past that line, I want to bring it down here so that it becomes neat. Therefore now we can end our line here, and also let's end this method here. So let's save, and now after saving it, let me run the application. npm run dev. Now our application is up, still running. So when the application is up and you confirm that now it is running on the port 8080, you can now try to test this API and see whether you will really fetch the data. So you go back to your Postman, and this is our API that we created last for adding a post. So let's create another API, but before creating an API, you can as well save this API so that to avoid typing it every other time you want to test this particular API. Alright, so for you to save this API, you can create a new collection where you save all your APIs, or you can save in one of these collections. These are the collections that I've created for different projects, but now because we are working with this project, I'm going to create another collection within Postman. I'm going to select create collection, and I'm going to give the collection name and call it blog post API. So this collection will have all the APIs for this particular project, blog post. Then now I can come back to this API. I want to save this one so that next time I want to test it again, I should not again struggle by typing it again. So I want to save it in this collection that we just created, blog post API, and when you're saving it, you can give it a name, maybe call it add post API, and then save it. Then you can create another one, call it get post. So it is still going to be HTTP localhost 8080 API v1, but now the path here changes to get post, so as to match with this API, with this path here, get posts. In fact, I should add s. Then now you should also just select get instead of post, because in our backend here we're using get. Then now we don't need a request body, so we can just send our request. So when I click send, so when I click send, it is sending the request. You can sit down and try sending request, and it is taking a bit longer. Let me remove this. As it is sending the request, let me save it also. So I want to save it in this same collection, and now I will want to change the name to get posts. So now within this collection, you can see now we have two APIs, one for adding a post and another one for getting a post. So if you want to test any of this, you just click on that. Here this is adding a post, and here getting a post. So let me cancel the request and send it again. I think my postman is hanging. Or either let me stop the backend, Control C, and then try to let me close postman and open it. It seems like it's hanging. So again, open postman. Alright, so let me send the request again. Before sending the request, let me run the server. Now the server is up and running, so let me send the request again. I need to give us some error saying let me see the error on the console here to see why the problem is. Okay, so it cannot convert the object into a JSON format, so let's convert that. Find one response.json accounts. So let me remove this and then again save. Okay, let me try again sending a request. Still the same. Control save. So we're getting this error here saying that it cannot convert this data, this particular list, into JSON. And so let's see how we can convert this data to the JSON format before we can return it back to the client. So here we are fetching all the list of posts and assigning it to this variable called list of posts, and then now we are returning a response.json list.post. Let me see if it has a method inside for converting to a JSON. It's not there, so let me say response.json. Alright, so let me say this, and constant JSON format is equals to JSON dot string file, then list of posts, and then return JSON dot JSON format, and save that. And let's try this if it gives us the result. It still can't. Alright, so let's troubleshoot this with AI to see whether we can get a very quick fix. So to be able to troubleshoot very fast with an AI, just what you do, get your code. So let me return back to the initial code that we had, this particular one. So you can get this, your code here, copy and paste it to any of your favorite AI. You can use DeepSeek, or you can use ChatGPT to troubleshoot, or even Copilot to troubleshoot. And here it is appropriate you give your code section that is giving the error, then you accompany it with the error that you are getting. So the error we are getting here is cannot convert the JSON at this particular point. Then just press enter. You'll be able to see the possible fixes. Oh, okay, I think I can see there. We need to wait for the operation here to finish here, by the way. So you can see where we went wrong. So again, let's save that. After it runs, let me confirm it's up and running. It's still running. Now it's up, so let's try again sending the request. Yeah, so now you can see, now we are able to send the request, and now we are getting the response, and the response is the message saying list of posts and the data. And you can see in this data is an array of objects. So the first object starts from here up to this point, and then the second object starts from here up to this point. So now we only have two records which are being returned using a list or an array. Alright, so going back to our error, why we got this error here is because once you are writing any query to interact with the database, whether you are saving some data or you want to fetch some data from the database, you must always use this keyword await. And the importance of this is that, you see, when you are sending a request to the database, that request might take some milliseconds or some time before it completes. and because of that, before you proceed to the next line, you need to wait for that database operation to complete before you go to the next line. So when you don't wait, then this line, the next line is actually executed before the database operation is completed. So it is always advisable to use the keyword await once you are interacting with any database operation. So now we have created the two APIs, one for adding the post, the other one for getting the post. So let us add the, we go to the next CRUD operation, which is update, and therefore update means we are modifying some existing data in the database. And when we are modifying, we normally want to use the standard HTTP method, which is put. So let's create one API that will update the content, or that will update the database record. So to do that, we can create an API. We come back to our database here, I mean to our Visual Studio, and now below here let's add another API, router dot. So this time round we use the put method, and then slash, we can say update post, and then in here we have a synchronous in bracket, we have request and response, then the function body. All right, then within this function we're going to define the logic, or the function logic, which will update the post. So what we want to do is that when we are updating a post, we want to pass the post ID, and then based on that post ID we can update that post ID. So when do we send a request? Let me put a request here. So when the request comes, we want to make sure that we pass the ID of that post that we want to update in the request. So here we come and say const post ID is equals to body, or we can even say post. We use the destructuring method, post ID. This is equals to request dot body. All right, then after getting the post ID from the request body, we want to use this query. Go back to our code snippet. So we want to use this other query called find by ID and update. So these are MongoDB query that will get that particular post by ID, and then after getting that post, it will now update it based on whatever we have provided here. All right, so let me get this particular section of code here. So we have a constant updated account is equals to await. Then we're going to say, let's say updated post, is equals to post dot find by ID and update. So where is the ID? The ID is what we've already gotten from the request body. So in place of ID, we use request. We use the post ID. Then request dot body new is equals to true. And then after updating the post, we now return the response with the new updated post. So here we say updated post. So after saving, let's now test this API. This one is going to be a response. Then save. And this is going to be a request. Alright. So let us test this in the Postman. And again, let's create another new API for the update. And now because we are using update, let's change the method from get to put. Then the URL, the base URL will still remain the same. So this one is the base URL. Then here we just change to update post. Let's see if it matches with our backend. Yeah, update post, and it is a put. So we have that. Then in the body, let's now provide the information that we want to update. So let us, when we go to the list of posts, let me save this before even going there so that we don't struggle to find it. So I'm going to save this API in this particular collection, and I'm going to call it update post. So now when you go to the list of posts, the get post, you can see we have this post. So let us update the first one, and we change the name, the poster, we change this name to a new name, and see whether it updates in the database. So the post ID is this. So we come back here, we create a new JSON body, and we select here JSON, and then we're going to have post ID, and the post ID here is going to be this, and then poster. So if you look at this first post, the poster is Samson. So let us change it to a new name, for example Patrick. Okay, and now let's save this change and let's send the request. Again, we are getting the error. So what is the error we are getting? We're getting 404, and 404 is a status code, which means that this URI, the API we are trying to access, it does not exist, or either the method is not correct. So we can see here we have the method get, but it should be put. So let's put the method put here, then we send the request again, and now it goes successfully. And you can see now the response that is coming back is that the post has been changed from Samson to Patrick. And now when you go to your database, you should see that it changes. So let me refresh. So when refresh, you can see the first object, the value of poster has been changed to Patrick. So now you can see you have successfully updated the record, this first record here. All right. The last CRUD operation that we want to look at is the delete operation, and deleting means simply you are removing some data from the database. And when you are deleting, in creating the API, it's always good to use the standard HTTP method, which is delete method. And so let's create one API to delete. So below this, we're going again to add another API using the router dot. Now this time we use the delete, and then slash, we call this path delete a post. Okay, then we are going to have asynchronous, then yes, and between the parentheses request from the client and response from the server. Let me remove this express. Then we define the function body or the logic of that API, how the delete is going to be done. So simply we want just to remove once a request comes from the client requesting to delete that post, we just simply delete. So let me get these 2 lines of code. And here I'm using await. Here instead of using account, that is just an example of that. So for our case, we are using posts. Post.find by ID and delete. So where's the ID? The ID is coming from the parameters. But for now, I don't want to introduce the concept of params. We will look at that when we look at the types of requests. So for now, I want to provide my ID in the body. So let me declare a variable called constant post ID, and I assign it to request.body. Okay, and then now when I delete, I want to delete a post with this post ID. Then after deleting, I want to return a response saying message, with a message saying post deleted successfully. Alright, so let's save that changes, and again we test this delete API. So how do we test? Go back to our postman and create a new request. So this time, because it is a delete, let us use the conventional or the standard HTTP method called delete, and here the same base URL, only that here it will change to delete post. Okay, then in the body we are going to provide the post ID, so we don't even need the poster field, and we are going to, let's just make this method again delete. So let's save it before we can even send the request. So let me save it in this same collection and give it the name delete post, and then save. So let me confirm the body. So in the body we have the post ID, indicating which post do we want to delete. So if you look at this post ID, it is for the first post. So let me send the request. Again, it gives you an error saying cannot destructure property post ID. So let's see how we have written it here. Post ID this one must be the same as this. Oh yeah, you see we have not put the JSON format, should be in a JSON format. So let's send the request again. And now it returns you saying that the post deleted successfully. So when you confirm on your database, or even when you come back to getting posts now we initially had 2 posts, but now after deleting the first one, we should be able only to fetch only 1 post now. So you can see only there is only 1 post because the other one has been deleted. So when you look in your database and refresh, you're also going to see only 1 post remaining now. So guys, this is a summary of the CRUD operation. We've been able to create 4 CRUD operation. 1, to add a post, we can get the post, we can update the post, we can delete the post, and this is the corresponding APIs in the backend. So we have the backend of the API for adding, getting, updating, and deleting. So maybe I will pause here, and in case someone has a question to ask, you can ask so that I can clarify where it's not clear.